Hey guys, I'm X, and this is The Journey. Hey, welcome back. Today is part two of talking about my spirituality and my beliefs and stuff. Uh, Today I'm just kind of chilling, super low key, not at work, and get a little steady cam action. You don't got to worry about me having to keep my face in frame and stuff. But yeah, I guess sort of where I left off in that last video, I was talking about atoms and sort of how my mind was blown after reading this book that my mom had given me back when I was in like 8th grade, I believe, something like that. Um, and Just to sort of reiterate a little bit from what I said last time, uh, I studied a little bit of quantum mechanics back in the day, a little bit before this book, but this book sort of inspired me to pursue a little bit more of it, just sort of on a hobby, geek sort of want to know sort of thing. I was super geek back in the day, read a lot. Um, but yeah, well, I'm still a geek. Anyways, uh, so back to the atom thing. So so atoms have electrons, protons, neutrons, smaller elements that I'm not going to get into right now. Um, but yeah, so with electrons, what the book was pointing to was that they vibrate in and out of existence constantly. So like boom, 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 boom. So like, but it's vibrating at such a consistent rate that, solid things become solid. And so sort of, I'd sort of have to get into a little string theory with this, because string theory sort of talks about quarks, I believe, or I forget exactly what the piece of matter is or whatever, but it's like the thing powering atoms even further, I believe, like deep in the core of atoms or whatever, in the nucleus or whatever. Um, Strings, even smaller than the protons and the neutrons and stuff, they're vibrating. And so these vibrating, and this is just my limited understanding. I could be 100% wrong or 100%, this is super old knowledge, if you will, from like 2004, 2003, 2002, something like that. And probably even earlier than that, so it could be outdated. That's my point. But anyway, these strings, to my knowledge, they vibrate. And so the way this sort of resonates through the levels of matter, if you will, so like, strings, then you get to like atoms and like the quantum realm, then you get a little bit further into like, when you start getting into like biology sort of level sort of things, like, cell level and that sort of stuff. Anyways, because it's all interconnected, that's sort of the point that I'm sort of getting to. Well, I guess there's a side point that I wanted to make right there with the vibrating. And so with the vibrating, it resonates through all these levels of matter, and it creates different, levels of matter. And so like rocks vibrate at a different level than like water and versus, a leaf or whatever. And so all these different frequencies of vibration create matter, and that's sort of the way I sort of perceive things. But further than that, what I was saying earlier, everything's sort of connected, right? Hippie talk. Yeah, so like, I believe everything at a base level is essentially the same thing. There's this law of matter, and it's like matter is neither created nor destroyed, it just changes form. And so with that being said, everything always is and always is there for the most part, to my knowledge, because I believe in like multiple universes and multiple dimensions and all that sort of thing. And so with that being said, it's all interconnected, and in so many other ways too, not just in at that base matter level, but in like the way events happen, and I throw up air quotes because one thing I believe is in sort of the unification of space and time. Like, you know, you don't have a place without a time, or excuse me, you don't usually tell somebody like where to meet or whatever without a place and a time, because you have to be there at the same time in order to meet. And so the way that I sort of see things is that there's this plane, right? And this, you know, gravity and all that sort of thing, that's the Einstein thing, this plane of time and space. And I call it space-time, time-space, whatever, like one word, because to me it's like the same thing for the most part, because you have to imagine, like, the Earth is spinning through space. It's never in the exact same space that it ever was, right? Everything's constantly in motion, constantly in flux. So it's never in the same exact space. And so, because it's never in the same space, right? That means, you know, one, if you did want to, this is my theory on time travel, if you did want to go back in time, you'd have to go back to like where the Earth was in a very specific time space or whatever. I don't know how you actually get there, but like, because, you know, nothing is in the same place that it ever was, because it's constantly rotating, constantly moving. And so the way I kind of view consciousness is like we're just kind of traveling along this somewhat predestined path. And so I had this whole conversation with somebody about choice, right? And I guess maybe this is this will be the point of these two things, is choice. And so, like, I believe in choice, and you know, it kind of goes into like the whole reason I'm not a Christian anymore, but like I'm not gonna, you know, downplay anybody's faith or anything, because I understand why you believe it, you know. And to me, it's just sort of a differing of opinions in a way. So yeah, choice. So that's sort of the reason I'm not a Christian, is because, you know, like in the Christian faith, to my understanding, you know, God gives free will. And to me, it's sort of a, this weird situation, right? Like God is at one saying, you have free will, but you must love me. And if you don't, I'll be wrathful towards you, right? And for me, that just didn't resonate for me. And so, to the level of choice, I do believe in free will, but I also, going back to the space-time thing, I don't believe it as such. Like, we perceive it as a choice, but like, I always feel like because of how events occur, everything is so connected. Every event is so connected that there are so many factors that went into you making that choice, or me making that choice, or whatever choice was made, right? And the choice that was going to be made was always going to be made regardless of whatever. Like, even if you sort of backpedal and choose something different, you know, you were always going to do that, because that's your nature, you know, that's who you always are, who you always were. And like, and it's kind of a shitty thing to say, because people make really shitty choices. Like, I make shitty choices, probably not as bad as some other people, obviously, I guess. Like, I've never killed nobody, but anyways, yeah, it's like and that's what, you know, in the last video I said I'm sort of a contradiction in a lot of my beliefs. It's like I believe there's free will, but I also don't believe there's free will. And then sort of at the base of all that, let's take it all the way back to like the belief that everything is sort of one, and like, you know, the space-time thing, the whole atom thing, everything is sort of interwoven into this magical organism that is life and experience and the universe, and, you know, everything that we know it as it is, you know, it's all one thing the way that I perceive it, even though like I perceive it just as myself, because I'm sort of, that's how I'm built, you know, that's what my brain does. It only perceives what this vessel allows, you know. But just sort of at the base level, in like my soul, my heart, my spirit and stuff, I believe everything is super connected and one and united. And part of this is driven by that book of, you know, Conversation with God. And there was a passage in it that tripped me up about, like, you know, and this sort of goes into what I believe is God. So I believe everything is one, and I believe that one thing is God. And so I do believe there are multiple gods, but I also believe that all those gods sort of equate to one God, which is the entirety of everything, which is the experience, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's sort of my main belief in like existence and life, and that sort of drives a lot of who I am and the choices I make and that sort of thing. But yeah, so at this base level, everything is essentially God in my mind, but that God is undiscerning, which is sort of where I departed from, I guess, the Christian faith, because for me, the God that I know, he keeps it rolling. He keeps that shit fucking rolling. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of whatever you got going on, that shit's going, life keeps going, time, space, we just keep circling, it keeps going. And like, indifferent to whatever you have going on, everything gonna keep moving. And so that's something that drives me, as far as like, I really try to be present, though I live in my head so much. Like, that's something I really try to work against. But yeah, I try to be present. I try to live life as much as I can, because I can only experience it as this once, to the way that I feel, even if there are multiple dimensions and multiple iterations, I can only experience this specific iteration one time, and so there's only this one thing. And in saying all that, I'm kind of a nihilist, and to explain that just means you believe that nothing matters, essentially. And it's sort of dark and grim, but it's also freeing and somewhat inspiring, because for me, I'm also sort of a nihilistic optimist, or I try to be as much as I can, which means that, you believe that nothing matters except for what you make matter. And so, going back to choice, for me, I choose to try to be a better person every day. I choose to try to bring happiness and joy to other people as much as I can. I try to be, a positive thing in this world, because there are so many negative things. And so, yeah, that's sort of me in a nutshell, if you will. Yeah, so tune into the next video, and I'll be talking a little bit more business next time. But maybe you enjoyed this video, maybe you didn't, but hopefully you did. If you did, like, subscribe, share the video, share the content. Please comment if you feel so happy to. You guys, back to choice. Choose love. I love you guys. Peace.